Dude, God bless you all. We're going to be discussing the abomination of desolation and what I think it actually means. So, Daniel 9:27 talks about 9:26 talks about the death of the Messiah, and it says basically that the Messiah will be executed. Cut off means executed, and that Jerusalem, the city, and the sanctuary, the temple, will be destroyed by the people of the prince who is to come. And the prince who is to come shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, which is 7 prophetic years, which is 2,520 days. Halfway through the week, 1,260 days, he will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he will make it desolate, the abomination that makes desolation, even until the consummation, until the end, and that the torment shall be poured upon the desolate. So there's going to be a massive period of chaos once the treaty is broken halfway through 1,260 days. Okay, so we're going to fast forward through a lot of this stuff. I just want to talk about a few things in particular about the abomination. Not all of these things are the abomination of desolation. Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation in the end times prophecies as well. Okay, so we get to Daniel. So I already read this one. So it seems like Daniel chapter 9 and Revelation chapter 11, as well as Revelation 13 and Daniel 7, they both tell the same story. So for 1,260 days, the two prophets are going to be preaching in Jerusalem, clothed in sackcloth and ashes. Many people believe that these two prophets are the prophet Elijah and Enoch, or the prophet Elijah and Moses. So they'll be preaching for 3.5 prophetic years, halfway through the week, until the beast that ascends from out of the pit, Satan, kills them both. So here in Daniel chapter 11:31, I believe this was talking about the events in Greece. An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, which is what the Greeks did to Jerusalem, and they shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that makes desolate. What was the abomination that makes desolate? It was worship of Zeus. Zeus is a satanic imitation of Yahweh. We can see the Greek mythologies that they think Zeus is like their great god, and their entire religion is basically a corruption of Judaism. So they have a version of the Garden of Eden story where Zeus is the reason why we're not in paradise. Zeus is the one who sent Pandora's box, which was to tempt humanity, to divide us from ourselves, and to let all these demons loose. Zeus is the one who sent the flood, and Prometheus is the one who warned his demigod son, Deucalion. Prometheus is essentially like a Lucifer mixed with Yahweh, and Zeus is like a Satan mixed with Yahweh. Whereas Prometheus is the one who gave enlightenment to humans, and Prometheus was cursed for this because he gave us fire. Basically, everything they believe is a corruption of the Bible, just like the Muslims. But the point being is that the Great Flood story is in the Greek mythology. Prometheus is the one who made humanity from clay in the Greek mythology, and Prometheus is the one who warned Deucalion of the flood, just like God warned Noah. So the Greeks worship Zeus. Zeus, we know, is a satanic human sacrifice, cannibalism god. There's a mountain in Greece where they used to do these occult mystery religion rituals. I believe it's called Mount Lycaon. There was a mountain in Greece where they would do a cannibalism and human sacrifice ritual, and it was said that this would make you into a werewolf. And an ancient Greek Olympian boxer actually participated in this, according to their history. So they're going to take away the twice daily sacrifice. This ends up happening in the books of Maccabees. They desecrate the temple, and they establish worship of Zeus, and everybody who refuses to worship Zeus, they put them to death. So Daniel 12:11, from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So the abomination that makes desolate, 1,290 days. I'm not sure if this Daniel 12:11 is talking about the future events or the events that happened in the days of the Greeks. But what we can tell is that they've been trying to summon Satan from the pits of hell for a long time. That's all this is. They're trying to open the gates of hell to let Satan, Zeus, Jupiter, Allah, Baal, Dagon, Enlil, there's always this one Satan god, and he is like the chief of the pagan gods, the father of the gods, and they want him to be released. We know Allah is not the God Yahweh because the religion of Muhammad is not the religion of Moses. The religion Jesus followed was the religion Moses followed, as all the prophets did. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all followed the same religion as Moses. They just didn't have the Passover. They ate clean animals. They rested on the Sabbaths. They gave burnt sacrifices. You can read in the book of Jubilees. You can read in the testaments of the 12 patriarchs. There is absolutely nothing inconsistent between the Gospels, the law of Moses, and the law of Abraham and Noah and Abel. Noah, Abel, Moses, Abraham, they all gave burnt sacrifices of clean animals. It was the same religion. Islam is something completely different, but they pretend, just like the Greeks pretended. No, 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 no. Your God is fake. The real God is Zeus. The real God is Prometheus and Athena. That's what they basically went on about. They paganized a monotheistic religion, just like the Muslims did. So, um, so here's Jesus talking about it. When you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, talking about Jerusalem, talking about Solomon's temple. Well, Solomon's temple still has the glory of God. However, it's currently being occupied by Muslims. Okay, Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Muslims don't even believe that the glory of God is still in Al-Aqsa. Muhammad used to tell the Muslims to pray to Jerusalem. Then he told the Muslims to pray to Mecca when the Jews realized he was a false prophet. Solomon commanded us through the Holy Spirit. Solomon commanded us to pray to Jerusalem. This is 1 Kings chapter 7, chapter 8, somewhere around there. Solomon is speaking when they dedicate the temple. Solomon gave the red heifer sacrifices, by the way. These red heifer sacrifices are a very important part of the law of Moses. And the fact that the Muslims do not believe in it tells you that they don't actually believe in Moses as a prophet. If they did believe in Moses as a prophet, they would do what Moses commanded. Jesus told us to follow what Moses commanded. Jesus was a true prophet. He also is the Messiah, which means he's the Son of God. You can read about what the Messiah is in Daniel chapter 7. The Messiah will take the throne from the Ancient of Days, which is the Father, and that's it. When Jesus takes his throne, that's it. The mission is done. You can't fight it anymore. Anyone who tries will be destroyed. So the Abomination of Desolation, this is a future event, but it's an event that happened in stages. So we're going to get to it. We're going to read about how the Greeks desecrated Solomon's temple, and the Romans did the same thing. Zeus and Jupiter are the exact same God, and same as Allah. Let's see, it's this one, I believe. Okay, so this is the second book of Maccabees, chapter 6. This is a very important part of the Bible, and the fact that it was removed from the Protestant Bible should tell you how important it is. So, what is my favorite version of the Bible? My favorite version of the Bible is the Ethiopian Bible. I believe their story of the Beta Israel, I believe it's accurate. I believe that Israel basically had a breakaway civilization that went to Ethiopia, and it happened in the days of King Solomon. You can read about it in the Keber Nagast. I believe the story of the Keber Nagast is probably true, or at least mostly true. I believe King Solomon had a child with the Queen of Sheba, and this child basically brought some of the priests and possibly the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia or Saba or Sheba or wherever it was, along with some of the priests. And this is why Ethiopia has the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees. The Ethiopian Bible is a version of the Bible that existed before the destruction in the books of Maccabees, when the Greeks, when the Macedonian Empire was trying to completely destroy Israel, completely destroy Judaism, kill all the prophets, destroy the Torah. I mean, it was unprecedented. The fact that Judaism survived is proof that this is divinely ordained by God. You cannot fight what God has planted. So, 2nd Maccabees chapter 6, the suppression of Judaism. Not long after this, the king sent an Athenian senator to compel the Jews to forsake the laws of their fathers and to cease to live by the laws of God, and also to pollute the temple in Jerusalem and call it the temple of Olympian Zeus, and to call the one in Gerizim the temple of Zeus, the friend of strangers, as did the people who dwelt in that place. I think Gerizim, so I think that's the Samaritans. There were two temples. The Samaritans believed that Jerusalem was not the holy temple, but in Gerizim, and the Jews believed it was in Jerusalem, not Gerizim. But regardless, they both worship the same God, just slightly differently. And so they basically polluted both temples, made them both Zeus temples, as did the people who dwelt in that place. Harsh and utterly grievous was the onslaught of evil, for the temple was filled with debauchery and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with whores and had intercourse with women within the sacred precincts, and besides brought in things for sacrifice that were unfit. The altar was covered with abominable offerings, which were forbidden by the laws. A man could neither keep the Sabbath nor observe the feasts of his fathers, nor so much as confess himself to be a Jew. Sounds like Palestine. You call yourself a Jew in Palestine, see what they do to you. Okay? Islam is a continuation of the abomination of desolation religion. They are at war with God. They want to destroy Israel. They want to destroy Judaism. They want to destroy Christianity. Look at what they're doing to the Nigerian Christians. There is a huge war going against the people of this book. If you are Jewish, you must follow the law of Moses. If you are Christian, you must follow the example of Jesus. Jesus told us to keep the law of Moses just as Jesus did. If you are a follower of Jesus, congratulations, you are also a follower of the laws that God gave to Moses. A man could neither keep the Sabbath nor observe the feast of his fathers, nor so much as confess himself to be a Jew. On the monthly celebration of the king's birthday, the Jews were taken under bitter constraint to partake of the sacrifices, and when the feast of Dionysus, which is Bacchus, Bacchanalia, this is like, basically you get drunk and you have an orgy. That's basically what it is. It's like Baal worship. They were compelled to walk in the procession in honor of Dionysus, wearing wreaths of ivy. At the suggestion of Ptolemy, a decree was issued to the neighboring Greek cities that they should adopt the same policy toward the Jews and make them partake of the sacrifices. And they should slay those who did not choose to change over to Greek customs. One could see, therefore, the misery that had come upon them. For example, 2 women were brought in for having circumcised their children. These women were publicly paraded around the city, and their babies were hung at their breasts, and then they hurled them about headlong from the wall. Others who had assembled in the caves nearby to observe the 7th day secretly, the Sabbath, were betrayed to Philip and were all burned together because their piety kept them from defending themselves in view of their regard for that most holy day. So they didn't even fight back because it was the Sabbath, because they were so devoted to the law. Now I urge those who read this book not to be depressed by such calamities, but to recognize that these punishments were designed not to destroy, but to discipline our people. In fact, not to let the impious alone for long, but to punish them immediately is a sign of great kindness. For in the case of the other nations, the Lord waits patiently to punish them until they have reached the full measure of their sins. But he does not deal in this way with us, in order that he may not take vengeance on us afterward when our sins have reached their height. Therefore he never withdraws his mercy from us. Though he disciplines us with calamities, he does not forsake his own people. Let what we have said serve as a reminder. We must go on briefly with the story. Eleazar, one of the scribes in high position, a man now advanced in age and of noble presence, was being forced to open his mouth to eat swine's flesh. But he, welcoming death with honor rather than life with pollution, went up to the rack of his own accord, spitting out the flesh, as men ought to go who have the courage to refuse things that it is not right to taste, even for the natural love of life. So basically, they were forcing people to eat swine's flesh or die. And this is horrible, but this is what the abomination of desolation is about. They wanted to destroy the Jewish religion, and they were willing to murder people, horribly mutilating, torturing them to death for refusing to eat pork. And you can read all about that in the next chapter. So, the abomination of desolation, you can read about that. This is Zeus worship, this is Baal worship, but Zeus, I don't think this ever happened before in the Bible where they actually defiled the temple of Solomon where God's glory dwelled, and they made it a Satan worshiping temple. This is the first time it happened with the worship of Zeus. And yes, Zeus is a god of cannibalism and human sacrifice. There is a mystery religion hiding behind Zeus worship, Mount Lycaea, Mount Lycaon. You can read about this. If you type Zeus cannibalism mountain, you can see what I'm talking about. Zeus is Satan. Jupiter is Zeus. Allah is Zeus. It's the same god. So here we can see when the Romans did it all over again. So apparently Hadrian, Emperor Hadrian, apparently was an Edomite, according to the Talmud. And I know the Talmud is hit or miss because it's the writings of the Pharisees, the writings of the rabbis. So some of it's going to be blasphemous, some of it's going to be heretical. But they believed that Hadrian was from the lineage of Esau. And this is very important because if you read Malachi chapter 1, God loves Jacob, who is Israel, and he hates Esau. By the way, Esau is the name that the Muslims call Jesus. They don't say he's Jesus. They don't say he's Yehoshua, Yeshua. They call him Prophet Esau. So Esau in the Bible is a child of Satan. And the fact that they would change Jesus' name to Esau should tell you that if somebody comes and calls themselves Esau, like the Esau from the Bible, the Muslims will think it's Jesus. We got to not worship, but we're going to follow what his example is. Whereas Esau in the Bible hated Israel and tried to exterminate their lineage multiple times, the land of the Edomites, especially in the book of Jubilees and the testaments of the 12 patriarchs. You can see Esau and his sons tried to exterminate Jacob and his sons. Yeah, that's what the Muslims are waiting for. They're waiting for their Esau, their ISA, to rise up against the Jews and help them exterminate them. So, Emperor Hadrian visited Judea. Apparently, he was like, I am a god, and I'm going to create a temple in Jerusalem. I will destroy their religion utterly, and I will make myself a god. So, he builds Aelia Capitolina. The foundation of Aelia Capitolina and the construction of the temple to Jupiter at the site of the former temple may have been one of the causes for the outbreak of the Bar Kokhba revolt in 132. Aelia Capitolina remained as the official name until late antiquity, and the Aelia part of the name was used in Arabic as Ilia during the Umayyad Caliphate. So, we see that the Greeks started it around 170 before Christ. They desecrate it, they dedicate it to Zeus, and the Jews have to rededicate it to Yahweh with the red heifer sacrifice. So they cleanse the temple with the red heifer sacrifice, they put it back into Yahweh worship. It's clean, and they return to their former priestly duties. Then the Romans desecrate the temple again. They dedicate it to Jupiter. Jupiter and Zeus are the same god. It's just Zeus is the name the Greeks give him, Jupiter's the name the Romans give it. But essentially, it's Satan. There's this chief of the god. Like I talked about this. It's Dagon, it's Enlil, it's Jupiter, it's Zeus, and it's Allah. And how do we know Allah is not the same as the God of the Bible? Because Allah is not the God of the law of Moses. Allah is not the God of the prophets. The Muslims do not believe in the law of Moses. They think it was corrupted. The Muslims do not believe in the words of the prophets. They think that was corrupted. The Muslims do not believe in the Gospels. They think that was corrupted, nor in the book of Revelations. It's very clear that the Muslims do not believe in anything related to the Bible, except that which can be twisted to legitimize their cult. If they believed in Jesus, they would believe in the religion Jesus followed, which is the law of Moses, which was very perfectly preserved. It's promised in Deuteronomy 30. I give you this law that you don't have to look into heaven for it or across the sea. It is near you. The law of Moses, God made a promise it would always be perfectly preserved. So there's no reason to doubt the law of Moses if this is the religion that Jesus, Daniel, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Moses, every single prophet from Moses till Jesus followed the exact same religion. And even before Moses, they followed a very similar religion with less steps, less details. But to say that Islam is correct and the Bible's corrupted is to deny everything that every prophet ever did. Abraham gave burnt sacrifices, Muhammad didn't. The end. So, this is the Abomination of Desolation. I believe this is how Satan's going to rise from hell. So, the Abomination of Desolation is a phrase from the book of Daniel describing the pagan sacrifices with which the 2nd century before Christ Greek king Antiochus IV Epiphanes replaced the twice daily offering in the Jewish temple, or alternatively, the altar on which such offerings were made. In the 1st century AD, it was taken up by the authors of the Gospels in the context of the Roman destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in the year 70, with the Gospel of Mark placing the Abomination of Desolation into a speech by Jesus. So, the secular interpretation. No, Jesus said these words. There's going to be a future event. The Abomination of Desolation is where Satan's going to rise. Jesus is giving eschatology, end times prophecies. Eschatological end times prophecies. And he's saying in the future, the Abomination of Desolation will stand in the holy place. So this is something to do with Satan. The Romans, the Greeks, and the Muslims have occupied Solomon's temple. This is what must be understood. The Muslims do not belong in Solomon's temple. They do not believe in the religion of Solomon. They worship a strange god. And the fact that the Muslims control this temple, that should be disturbing. So I am absolutely in favor of the red heifer sacrifice. Israel needs to cleanse the temple and then we can enter the final 7 years of tribulation, which ends with Jesus returning and reigning over the world and putting everything in place. And yes, the Antichrist will reveal himself first, and he will create a false peace paradigm, and many people will fall for it. But you know what? It's all worth it in the end, because Jesus comes back, he takes his throne, and we will be fine. So the abomination of desolation first started with the Greeks, then the Romans, and finally the Muslims. And the Muslims are not willing to give back this temple. But that's okay, because Jesus is going to take it back anyways. Zechariah 14. All right, this end times Armageddon prophecy, it ends with no more Canaanites in the house of God. Who are the Canaanites? The Philistines. The Philistines and their cousins, the children of Canaan, these are the Canaanites. And the Palestinians are Philistines. It's the exact same. The Arabic word for Palestine is Philistine. Okay? They are the people of Gaza and the surrounding cities. They are ethnically similar to the Egyptians. The Philistines come from Mitzrayim. Okay? Mitzrayim is basically the lineage of Egypt. So yes, there will be no more Canaanites in the house of God after Armageddon. The Bible is perfect. The prophecies are perfect. Anyone with a brain knows that the Bible is true. So, the abomination of desolation. Currently, this is the abomination of desolation is going to come from Jerusalem, from Solomon's temple, which is currently Al-Aqsa Mosque. Satan will rise from hell, the bottomless pit. You can read about this in Revelation chapter 11. The two prophets will preach in the streets of Jerusalem in sackcloth and ashes for 1,260 days. And after 1,260 days, the beast will ascend from the bottomless pit and kill them both. And this is Satan. Satan is the abomination of desolation. And when he ascends from the pit, there's going to be another 3.5 years, more or less, until Armageddon. So read your Bibles, follow the law of Moses, understand the words of the prophets, especially the minor prophets. They knew what they were talking about. Get into the prophets, get into the book of Revelation, get into the Gospels, get into the law of Moses, and it'll all make sense when it's time. God bless you all. It's going to get crazy, people. So, unfortunately, the secular interpretation of the Bible is prevalent all over Wikipedia. But yes, the abomination of desolation is coming. One of the more popular older views was to see the abomination a contemptuous deformation of the Phoenician deity Baal-Shamin, the Lord of Heaven. Philo of Byblos identifies Baal-Shamin with the Greek god Zeus, and as the temple in Jerusalem was rededicated in honor of Zeus, according to 2 Maccabees 6, older commentators tended to follow this man and seeing the abomination in the terms of a statue of the Greek god Zeus. So yes, Zeus, Baal-Shamin, Jupiter, Allah, they're all the same god. Baal, Jupiter, Zeus, Enlil, Dagon, all these pagan gods are essentially the same God. We know it's not Yahweh. We know it's not the God of Israel. We know it's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Solomon. We know it's not their God. How do we know? Because the Muslims don't follow the law of Moses. They think it's corrupted. Well, they're the corruption. And it's very obvious. If you know the prophets, you know that they're a corruption. But, it's a gang. Islam is a gang. You have to swear that you think Muhammad is a prophet to even be a Muslim. How can Islam be older than Christianity if you can't be a Muslim without saying that you profess that Muhammad is the final prophet? You didn't say that with Moses. I swear that Yahweh is God and Moses is his prophet. You didn't say that to become a Jew. You didn't do that to convert. So, the abomination of desolation, this appears to be Satan rising from the pit, and it's going to happen because the Muslims currently control Solomon's temple. So we'll see what happens. Read the book of Daniel chapter 9. This tells you about how this is going to play out. We have not yet entered into the final 7 years, but once we do, pray, people. Pray.